Hey, it's Aaron. I hope you're doing great. Today I'm really excited because I want to share a concept with you that I feel like is going to be a massive help to you if you're stuck in a situation where you've been training for a period of time and you're either trying to lose body fat or lose weight and nothing seems to be working for you. It feels like your body's rebelling against you. No matter what you try, you just can't seem to crack the code. This is going to be massively helpful for you if you understand this concept. Because once we understand this, we know exactly how to strategize and how to put a plan together to actually get you to your goals. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run you through a concept I like to call balancing the wheel. Okay, now what I've drawn up here is that wheel, and with the wheel are four main parts to it. Okay, so each part, think of it like a big scale. All right, we want this to be balanced right in the center here. And each of these sections holds an equal amount of weight. Now with each section, there is also a little scale within. Okay, we've got one side and two sides with every single quadrant here. Okay, what we want to do is make sure that everything's in balance. We've still got an equal amount of weight depending on what area we're talking about. Okay, and it'll all make sense in a bit as we explain it. So let's go around the wheel and explain what each of the parts are. So right at the top, we're going to start with stress. Okay, everyone knows what stress is. No doubt you've felt stress before. There are two types of stress. Okay, so there's good stress, also known as eustress, which is it's just enough for our body to recover from, but it's enough to actually cause it an adaptation. So the thing that comes to mind with this is exercise. Exercise is a form of stress we've applied to our body for it then to make a change. Now you might have noticed I've put in here when balanced, okay? This can quickly turn into bad stress if we're pushing too much, too often, or too hard. If we do too much exercise or the wrong form of exercise all the time, it can actually quickly flick over to bad stress, and all of those results go out the window, and we put the brakes on everything and our body goes, hang on a minute, you're trying to overload me with too much to do. I'm just trying to do my job here. I'm going to just stop everything, all right? Imagine it like you're sitting at a desk and you're working away, and all of a sudden people come into your office and they're dropping in pamphlet after pamphlet or paper after paper for you to sort through and do more work. And you know, you're working at one speed and people are just keep bringing in more and more paperwork for you to do, and it just eventually starts to pile up. Eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to slide all that off and you're going to go, I just cannot keep up with this. I can't keep up with the demand. And that's quite often what happens when we overload our body with stress. Our body goes, all right, I just simply cannot keep up with what's going on. We're going to have to put the brakes on everything. And that's what we don't want for you. We want you to be able to work with your body instead of working against it. Sometimes it feels like we're, you know, in this little battle of, oh, I want to try this, but you know, I'm being met with opposite results. On the bad side of stress, obviously we know what that is, where we've got too much of this fight or flight sort of thing going. Like we're constantly in a stress situation. We might feel like our brain's running at, you know, 10,000 times speed. You know, we're thinking all these thoughts, our brain's racing. When we try to go to sleep, it's just, you know, constantly working. We've got all these things that are stressing us out. Anytime you're worrying, whether it be about what you think other people might think of you, it could be financial stress, it could be, you know, something's happened in your life right now that's causing a lot of stress. No matter what it is, it's actually leading to overall stressful situations in your lifestyle. And then a lack of recovery. Okay, so as we said, each of these hold equal weight, and on the same axis down here we've got recovery. Okay, so if we're not getting recovery here, which way do you think the scale is going to go? It's going to start to tip towards here. If we take weight off here, here's going to be weighed down too much. Let's follow it around clockwise, and we come to nutrition. Now again, nutrition has two sections to it. On the one side, we've got high nutrient, low calorie options, and on the other side, we've got low nutrient, high calorie options. Under each of these, if you imagine your high nutrient, low calories, things like vegetables and fruits, you know, you can eat a lot of them, but they don't really have that many calories in them. And when you do eat a lot of them, you feel really full really quickly because they're full of fiber, they're full of nutrients. They're all the good stuff that we know we should be eating, but we don't tend to eat enough of them. On the other side, we've got low nutrient, high calorie options. Now this includes things like takeaway, we all knew that, but things like snack bars that are labelled as health foods, that's something you've got to watch out for as well. Quite often, a lot of these snack bars are full of nuts and seeds, which are great options. They have a lot of fiber, they do have a lot of nutrients, but they also carry a lot of fat. And fat also has a higher amount of calories than things like carbohydrates and protein. So you can eat a lot of these quickly, but you can also rack up the calories quite quickly as well. So that's a little hidden secret in there, is in the low nutrient, high calorie options too. When we follow it down and we go to the recovery section, again, we've got two forms here. Now we want to balance these out each time. So as with all of these, we want this to be in perfect balance. We've got things like direct and indirect recovery. Now, direct recovery is anything where we are making a conscious effort to recover. Okay, so think about it like sleep, where we have to go to bed, we have to get up in the morning, we have to allocate that time where we sleep. There will be a lot of this is done subconsciously, where our body's just taking over in the night and it's doing its thing, but we have to make sure that we're optimizing that. We're doing everything we can to make sure that process happens. Things like mobility, so that's where we're working on flexibility of the joints, making sure that we're moving properly, there's no restrictions anywhere. And things like foam rolling, that's where we're getting on a foam roller and we're making sure that we are actually recovering after a session. Okay, so those are direct forms. Indirect is more things worrying about like here and inside our body. So namely things like meditation and deep breathing. Deep breathing has a profound effect on the overall speed at which your body is running. So let's say, for example, you've had a really stressful day at work. Here is just off the charts. You've got so much stress going on. Something like a deep breathing exercise can quickly turn a lot of that stress and basically start to roll it back, to switch it off, using these methods as well. So like we said before, they're on the same axis. We want to balance them out, and these methods will help balance out this. Moving on, we've got exercise. Now, exercise is on the same axis to nutrition. Quite often when we get a client who comes to us and they want to lose body fat, the first things that they jump to, or what they've been exposed to before, is either what exercise program should I be doing? Like I'm doing 5 to 7 HIIT sessions a week. And then what nutrition strategy should I be doing? Should I do keto, low carb, high carb, low fat, high fat? You name it, every diet, they've probably tried it. Okay, so they're worrying about these two. 9 times out of 10, these are the ones that are actually out of balance. Okay, and what we want to try and do is balance all 4. But on the exercise side of things, we've got 2, again, like that scale, high intensity and low intensity. High intensity exercises are a high stress and also high reward. Low intensity is a low stress but also high reward. We want to balance them both out. We want to have equal parts. So we don't want to go into too high a stress, and we don't want to obviously just completely stop all exercise together. So high intensity exercise, think of that like weights training sessions or your high intensity interval training. So where you're going really, really hard and then you rest for a period of time. A true HIIT session is very, very intense. It's also very, very stressful on your body. If we do too much of it, we start to overstress that body. Low intensity exercises are things like walking and yoga. Okay, these are really great options because they also act as a form of recovery. When we're walking, we're promoting a recovery state, but at the same time, we're using energy. Okay, so it makes sense for us to balance out both high intensity exercise and low intensity. So that in a nutshell is the 4 parts of this wheel, and we've got a little scale in each section. Okay, so what I want to do is give you an example of someone who would normally come to us and how we would go at attacking that situation and getting them the best results by using this system. So let's say, for example, we've got a client who comes to us and they've tried a number of diets, a number of training sessions. They've tried a few programs before and they haven't seen any results with it, and they're just sort of fed up and confused because they're like, well, I don't know what's going on. Every time I try to do something, it just goes nowhere. Quite often on closer inspections, And this is what we find after speaking with the client and doing a bit of an assessment into what's their lifestyle like, what are their training sessions like, what about their nutrition and their recovery efforts as well. We can find out 9 times out of 10 that the bad stress is clearly outweighing the good stress. Okay, so they've got to a point where bad stress is, almost off the charts. They're really stressed out, and it's understandable. They're worrying that nothing's working. So worrying, as we said, in itself causes stress. Okay, so if we're worrying that this whole system is not working, we're actually tipping the scales. On the nutrition side, what tends to happen is because they're so stressed out, their body is trying as hard as it can to balance this situation out. So what's on the same axis as stress? We've got recovery. And what's a form of recovery that our body needs in this situation? It's using up energy here. So to replace that energy, it increases the demand on nutrition. So they feel hungry, they feel like they need to eat all the time. They start to feel, cravings for certain foods. That's their body saying, hey, we're under a lot of stress here. We're trying to do everything we can, but we just need some energy. And what tends to happen is because of the stress that's going on, maybe their lack of time, they're rushed around, they don't have, meal prep skills, they tend to go for low nutrient, high calorie options because of its convenience. It's really easy to sit there and either call the fish and chip shop up or get on Uber Eats and just click a few buttons and food arrives to your door. It's very, very easy now for us to do that. So that's a really easy option. It is much more difficult to go to the shops, buy some fruit and veggies and to cook that up. A lot of people will tend to go to the easier option, but it's only because it's a stressed situation. On the recovery side of things, 9 times out of 10, this client is really struggling in this area. Okay, when it comes to direct recovery, mobility and foam rolling, they're maybe not doing these all together, and sleep is definitely compromised. So they're not getting a minimum of 8 hours. If they're lucky, they're getting 6 hours a night. Okay, so if we're taking weight off the recovery side, where do you think it's going to go? Onto the stress. So we're adding more stress by decreasing these direct recovery methods. On the indirect side of it, on closer inspection, 9 times out of 10, again, this could be an area which we start working on straight away. So we want to incorporate things like meditation and deep breathing exercises. This makes a big difference. If we move around to the exercise part of it, this is where a lot of the things start to unravel. They're confused, they're not sure what's going on, and they've been told that if I move more and eat less, that I'll lose weight. Yes, from physics, that is correct. If you use up more energy than you take in, you will lose weight. However, it's not so simple when we put it into a situation like this. There's a lot more things at play here, and a lot more things that feed into the equation. For the exercise component, what we find 9 times out of 10, what's causing the stress in the beginning? They're running out of time. I don't have time, I need something quick. So that influences their exercise habits. Now, a HIIT session is much quicker. Yes, it's more intense, so they choose those options. They've been told if I exercise more, that I'm going to use more energy. So they start doing multiple HIIT sessions a week. They add running sessions in. They start doing, spin classes. They're doing all these, a lot of different things. But in turn, that's overdoing it, and it's feeding into the stress. Okay, so they're pushing too hard. They're giving their body too much work, so much so that it can't recover from it. Okay, so this really starts to put the brakes on. So all in all, what you can see is there's a heavy amount of weight going onto the stress side of it. We've got too much high intensity exercise feeding into stress. Okay, we've gone beyond the point of balancing it out, and now it's causing overstress. We're choosing nutrition options that are low nutrient, high calorie. So we're not actually getting the nutrients that our body actually needs. So therefore we're tending to overeat. Okay, and this is what's causing the body fat gain, but it's also making us not feel very good because there's no nutrition in there. We're just eating food which just satisfies a need then and there. On the recovery front, it's almost non-existent. Okay, we're not doing enough. We're not getting enough direct sleep, so direct recovery, and therefore all the weight's starting to pull down towards this side of the wheel. So what we would do in this situation is look at, all right, what can we start changing initially to start taking some of the weight off here and putting it on other areas. So a really easy way to do that is we look at, okay, what's causing stress right now? Where can we relieve some of the pressure? Because if we keep going and putting more pressure on, if we keep giving them more exercise and we tell them to eat even less, it's just going to put more stress back on the whole system, and eventually it's going to crumble and you're going to fall in a heap and you're going to feel like you've just burnt out, you've given up, and you throw your hands in the air and you go, well, I have no idea what's going on. What we try to do is take as much pressure off as we can. What's causing the stress? How can we manage it? Is there a solution that we can look at to mitigate some of that stress, to take it away? Okay, so that could be simple things of like, if time is an issue, that's where we want to look at planning ahead, setting out a schedule, like sticking to that schedule. On the nutrition side of things, we want to balance it out. So we want to try and get rid of some of the options where we're having, the low nutrient, high calorie, but we do that by introducing first. So addition before subtraction. So we start trying to put in the good stuff before we take out the stuff that's not really helping us. Okay, so we want to start including more vegetables, more fruit, and through a process of elimination, we're going to start to balance this side of it out. Okay, we're not saying that you can't have takeaway ever again. Like, everyone's going to want to have takeaway, and that's fine if you have it every once in a while. But you want to have majority of your nutrition. You want the high nutrient, low calorie options, which are going to give your body that fuel to actually help combat some of the stress. Okay, on the recovery side, name of the game here, we want to start improving the sleep. Okay, if we can get the sleep up to a 7.5 hours, we're doing great. That person is going to feel $1 million just by sleeping more. And it doesn't have to be, you have to take a sleep supplement or something crazy like that. It literally comes back to, this can be improved by addressing one of the concerns here. Okay, they're on the same axis. If we address the time situation and we plan a little bit more ahead of time, we can plan in to have more sleep. Go to bed a little bit earlier, start waking up at a consistent time. That is going to make a big difference. We can also start to work on mobility and foam rolling. These are active measures that we're taking to actually allow us to recover. We can also add in meditation and deep breathing. So now what we're doing, we're starting to take weight away from here and put it back into recovery. Okay, when we start to balance this out, amazing thing happens. We feel awesome, but our results start to come much faster. Okay, our body's actually doing what we're trying to get it to do in the first place. Okay, so that's the recovery. That's how we would attack that. Then with the exercise, what we want to try and do here is a process of substitution. Okay, we don't want to say to this person, you can't exercise and do any high intensity exercise, because it's something that they enjoy. If they want to do high intensity exercise, we're not going to say to them, no, you can't do that. What we want to do is just educate them and say, like, hey, we need to include some options here, low intensity options that help promote recovery. Like what we said before, these low intensity options can also work with the recovery side of things. Okay, we're trying to balance this out. So we want to increase the amount of things like walking. It's very easy to recover from a walk and very easy to recover from something like a yoga session, because they're not very, very stressful on the body and we can do them often. All right, so we can start to wind back and go, okay, cool, like maybe let's cut down from 7 HIIT sessions a week to 5, and then to 3, and then depending on how things are going, we might even go to 2. That might be the magic number for that person. That's what they can handle in a week and still get to their goals. Any more than that starts to drive up the stress too much again. So that's what we'll do, balancing that out. That's how we would approach this whole situation. And again, this isn't going to happen overnight. Like, this is a process that we work through over a long period of time, because we can't just go ahead and make all these changes at once and expect everything to be okay. It is a bit of trial and error, and some methods are going to work better than others. No two people are the same. So what works for one person to reduce stress might actually cause someone else more stress. Okay, if they're someone who time isn't the issue, maybe it's their environment is causing them stress. There may be some things we can do, there may not be some things we can do. With nutrition, There could be some food allergies that we're dealing with, or there's different things at play there. Exercise is another one, and recovery is another one too. Sleep for a lot of people is difficult to get, particularly if they've got little kids. If they've got young kids that keep them up in the middle of the night, telling someone to go and sleep 8 hours is going to be a challenge. Like, they might be getting 5, maybe 6 hours if they're lucky, but hey, that's where we start leaning on other methods like immobility, foam rolling, meditation, deep breathing. We start to lean on these more to help make up for the deficit here. So that, in a nutshell, is the balancing the wheel system that I like to employ with the clients that I work with. And hopefully that sort of made it a bit more clear for you to understand what's really going on here. So it's not just exercise and nutrition. We've also got 2 other axes here where we've got recovery and we've also got stress, which also need to be balanced. So again, just imagine this as a big scale. Everything needs to carry equal weight, and within each section we need to be balancing out the scales that are there as well. Otherwise we start to go into this situation where we put too much weight onto one, and when we do that, bad things start to happen. So it gets away from us and we lose all control. Everything starts to just unfold as it whatever happens. So hopefully that made it a bit more easier for you guys to understand. Let me know down below if you found this video helpful, and as always guys, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm here to help.